This movie review is brought to you by my subscriber, Soki13. Personal Shopper is a 2016/17 horror thriller and stars Kristen Stewart. Stewart plays a model's personal shopper who also considers herself a medium, and after her brother's unexpected passing, she searches for signs that his soul is still present. Okay, it's October, which means it's finally time for me to start reviewing scary movies. I have not reviewed a single horror movie yet this month, but now it makes sense because one of my loyal subscribers, Soki13, wanted me to review Personal Shopper, a movie I've never seen before. And I've heard a lot of negative reviews from audiences who saw this movie about 3.5 years ago in theaters. Like so many other indie movies that involve ghosts, Personal Shopper is once again another indie horror that divided critics and audiences back in 2017. And I can understand why audiences hated this movie. It's another one of those films that leaves a lot of questions unanswered. A lot of things don't make any sense after you watch it. It's a pretty confusing movie in terms of what happens exactly. Personal Shopper's thriller aspects I compare to the 2020 version of The Invisible Man, where you have a woman who's in a vulnerable position. She feels like she's being tracked down by a person. It could be a person who's alive or a ghost. We're not really sure. The only thing is, I feel like Personal Shopper is better on a technical scale, whereas The Invisible Man is a better overall entertaining movie. Everyone who's seen Personal Shopper knows that Kristen Stewart is great in the movie. There's no point in talking about her performance too much because it's a pretty obvious thing that she is great. And her character doesn't show too much emotion, but it makes sense because not only is she dealing with the loss of her brother, but she also experiences some pretty terrifying things. So for me, I felt like she pulled it off playing a character who's very disconnected from society. Going back to Personal Shopper's thriller aspects, this movie took me by surprise. I had no idea that I would be on the edge of my seat during some of the film sequences, because some of these sequences truly are chilling. My spine was tingling, and I did not want to move from my seat. I wanted to keep watching to see what was going to happen next. The moments that locked me to the screen the most include these scenes where she's inside a house, where she's trying to connect with her brother's soul. And I was taken back by how gripped I was during this sequence where she's on a train receiving text messages from an unknown caller. The entire text message conversation between this unknown caller and Kristen Stewart's character, I found extremely gripping. I wanted to know what was going to happen, and it also becomes very frustrating because the unknown caller doesn't give any direct answers, never exactly tells her who he or she is, so it can become very frustrating, especially if you are in the same shoes as Kristen Stewart's character, if you put yourself in there. Something else I love about Personal Shopper is how this is not just another one of those horror ghost movies that teases throughout the entire movie about there being a potential ghost. There actually are some supernatural elements in here, which I would have never guessed would have come in this movie. But thankfully, there are some supernatural elements in Personal Shopper, which I never thought to expect. And that took me off guard. Whether or not those scenes actually happen in the story, I'm not completely sure, but it's nice to have them to at least give the audience its own interpretation of what happens in this film. As a whole, I just liked how this movie balanced its ghost thrills and horror elements while simultaneously acting as a drama where a woman comes to terms with the death of her brother and him being gone forever. For some people, I'm sure that'll touch them very deep down. For me, not as much because I've never dealt with the loss of a sibling. Alright, and now I gotta go back and talk about why people hate this movie so much. Personal Shopper is another one of those horror movies that definitely does have a good amount of ambiguity, and some people hate that about this movie. I understand that, because the movie does not answer every single question, and it does get pretty annoying by the end of the film. Personally, I love ambiguity, but only when it's done right. In Personal Shopper, I don't feel like it's always handled as well as it could have been. The perfect amount of ambiguity comes at the end of a film like Joker, where you're not sure if everything you've seen in the entire film actually happened. Personal Shopper is neither slightly ambiguous or all out ambiguous. This movie is somewhere stuck in the middle. It's not slightly ambiguous because some of the middle element parts of this movie don't make that much sense, nor is it all out metaphorical and ambiguous because the movie does make sense from time to time. To be honest, I'm not completely sure what in this movie is real and what in this movie is fake. There are some supernatural elements like I mentioned in the film, but looking back, Does that actually happen? I have no idea. And I also wonder, what was the point of some of the supernatural elements if none of them actually had to do with the brother, at least the scenes in the house. Personal Shopper is not a bad movie. It's relatively decent. Kristen Stewart is great in the film. There are some elements that I love, like the supernatural and horror elements of the film that kept me on the edge of my seat, but having that middle ground with the ambiguity does get annoying from time to time. So I'm giving Personal Shopper a 64%. Alright, for those of you who also happen to see Personal Shopper, be sure to let me down below in the comment section what your thoughts are of it. If you're new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.